Welcome to Cardinals Cover 2 with Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. Cardinals Cover 2 is brought to you by Arizona Cardinals Podcasts. Visit azcardinals.com/podcasts. From the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center, here's Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki.
Well, it definitely feels like a game week. Didn't have that feeling a week ago Wednesday as the team was heading into its bye week, but now, well, the second half of the season underway. Cardinals and Chiefs on Sunday, team back in a routine, MJ. You've got practice, you've got media availability, team meetings in the afternoon, and yeah, they put that bye week to bed, and hopefully everyone's refreshed, ready to go.
Well, they've had, one game in the last 23 days?
Considering the Thursday game and the 10 days before the next game, yeah, that's an amazing stat that was brought up earlier this week, and you're thinking that's almost feels like a training camp because you're just practicing, meeting, and then, okay, let's play a game. But, yeah, one game in 20-plus days.
Yeah, and they're itching to get back on the field, and I can't wait to go through the injury report because this is what happens when you have one game in 23 days. Good news for the Cardinals headed to Kansas City.
And on that note, let's take off on this Wednesday, tell you what's ahead on the show. Could Josh Rosen be Patrick Mahomes in 2019? We'll discuss the two young quarterbacks who will share the field on Sunday. And the Cardinals this week got up close with the F-35 and an F-16. We'll take you to Luke Air Force Base, plus your questions via social media using the hashtag CardsCover2. Hashtag CardsCover2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. We do it with you 3 times a week. And, well, you brought it up, MJ, the injury report. The team is getting healthier. In fact, 3 players that have been on the injury reports on the practice field, albeit a little bit limited, but safety Trey Boston, defensive tackle Corey Peters, and backup offensive lineman Jeremy Vunovich, both on the practice field, according to head coach Steve Wilks, which is good. Specifically, Boston, who has missed considerable time, but I think they were being very cautious, especially as you mentioned that one game in 20-plus days. Let's make sure those ribs, the shoulder is good, because they're going to need them, especially on Sunday against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and, I thought they showed improvement last game when they played that 4-3. Now, obviously, Kansas City is going to spread you out. They're going to look for matchups. So with a healthy Trey Boston, I'd be curious to see how much they play a 4-3 or a 4-2-5 because what the NFL has become, and it's really, you can go to the college level and even high school, it's about matchups. They want to get a key matchup in there. So I know Bucks earn more playing time. Reddick's going to be starting next to Bynes. So be curious to see how they approach this defensively because I thought they did a really good job containing the running game, and we know Kareem Hunt's one of the better backs in the league, considering he was a third-round pick. So I'm curious to see what they do on defense, how they line up. And you're going to have to play a lot of 4-2-5 because they have a lot of weapons across the board.
It might a lot be dictated by down and distance as well. Obviously, if it's third and long, then, yeah, you're going to want 5 DBs out there, maybe even 6 because of the number of weapons. But Buchanan, based off his performance against the 49ers, certainly graded out well enough to, I think, me personally at least, get some more playing time. Now we'll actually see if it actually happens.
Yeah, and there's a stat out there that the Cardinals have definitely improved in their tackling in the open field, and I know it was a point of emphasis early on, and I think there's just so much newness. There was some miscommunication, but really tackling is more effort. It's about swarming to the ball, wrapping up, making sure you're tackling the right way so you don't get flagged, and that's an improvement because this is a team with whether it's Tyreek Hill and you got to make sure you catch him. He's like a cheetah out there. And then Travis Kelce, he's probably the best tight end because Gronk is dealing with some injuries right now. So they got their work cut out. But, again, I think the defense is excited about going out there and see where they stand.
A couple of players did not practice, according to head coach Steve Wilks. Larry Fitzgerald, although it was non-injury related at this point in the season, I think we've gotten accustomed to him taking Wednesdays off, the vet day off. I know he's dealing with a lot of bumps and bruises, but Fitz not on the practice field. He was out there, just not participating. And then fellow wide receiver Chad Williams working out with a trainer on the side during the open portion of practice to the media. He's dealing with an ankle issue, which now makes it even more clear while Kendall Wright was back into the fold, because if the Cardinals need a wide receiver, if Williams can't go for whatever reason or is not 100%, you've got someone that I think they know, understands, and actually has a track record in the NFL.
Yeah, and he could do a little bit of everything. He could play inside. He could play outside. He's more of a guy that's intermediate routes, and there's one thing that he does is catch the football. Now, when I say that, hopefully he doesn't have a drop on Sunday. I'll get a tweet on that. But, you know, Chad Williams obviously has been inconsistent, so hopefully he can get healthy enough because they can use as many wide receivers for the remainder of the season as they need.
One other note here on this Wednesday, it was 1 year ago today. Marcus Golden underwent ACL surgery, so I don't know if that's happy anniversary, although I did walk in.
Did you inform him of that?
I did. I'm big on the anniversaries, those milestone moments, and we always talk about, you know, a year removed from surgery, and I said it was 1 year. He kind of looked at me, and he goes, and it finally hit him. He's like, really? I was like, at that point, when he said, really, then you're like, okay, it's not even a thought in his mind anymore. It's no longer a concern of his. That part of his rehab, that mental aspect, is gone.
Yeah, and you know, you have some freak athletes like Adrian Peterson where they may come back 6 or 7 months. Normally, a torn ACL is literally 9 months, but they say it takes a full year of recovery, and we start to see over the last couple of weeks, at least in the last game, how he's moving a lot better. I don't think he's worried about the knee as much as maybe the first couple games. Maybe you're worried about a helmet hitting there. And he's going to be a big part of what they do in the second half of the season. So I'm really happy that he's healthy and he can put up some numbers. And I know the Cardinals want to retain him in the offseason. Curious to see what kind of deal he gets there, whether it's a 1 year deal or, you know, a 2 or 3 year deal. But he's definitely part of their core moving forward.
Yeah, he's not thinking about it anymore.
Exactly.
And we saw that on last week's episode of Wired, in which the Cardinals broadcasting department did wire up Marcus Golden, and you heard him. He was very excited. Marcus Golden is back. That injury, the hype, and just the fact that he doesn't have to think now, okay, is this how I planted prior to the injury? Am I as full speed, full go as I was before the injury? That I don't think is a part of his thinking at all anymore, which is good, because a healthy Marcus Golden, we saw what happened a couple of years ago with he and Chandler Jones. That's quite a bookend at defensive end.
Well, I think people forget, but he led the team in sacks that year at 12.5. And then obviously Chandler Jones, you know, led the team in the NFL in sacks last year. And, you know, from that standpoint, you got a 1-2 punch. And then Benson Mayo, we haven't talked about it as much as of late because Marcus Golden's getting more playing time, but that's a great rotation you have at that position.
Yeah, good depth for the Cardinals' defensive line. Speaking of that 49ers game, how about one more time we look back at the win and then look ahead to Sunday's matchup against the Chiefs as we take you inside the numbers.
Inside the Numbers, presented by La Mesa RV, where you can experience life. The Cardinals' victory over the 49ers was the 8th consecutive win over their division rival. The score of 18-15 mirrored the winning score of last season's overtime win over San Francisco. Those wins are the only 2 games in the NFL over the last 7 seasons to finish with a final score of 18-15. Down 15-3 in the fourth quarter, Arizona rallied to score the game's final 15 points on the strength of a dynamic offensive fourth quarter, totaling 10 first downs, 2 touchdowns, and 186 net yards. In the final 15 minutes, quarterback Josh Rosen connected on 12 of 18 pass attempts for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Receiver Larry Fitzgerald had 4 catches for 81 yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. And receiver Christian Kirk posted 2 receptions for 28 yards and a TD in the fourth quarter. Fitzgerald posted his 11th career 100-yard performance against the Niners. No player in NFL history has more 100-yard receiving performances against a single opponent than Fitzgerald has against San Francisco. Defensive end Marcus Golden had his best game since returning from a knee injury, finishing with a team-high 7 tackles, including 2 tackles for loss and a sack. This Sunday's opponent will be formidable. Led by second-year phenom Patrick Mahomes, Kansas City averages 36 points per game, leading the NFL. Mahomes has been stellar, completing 66% of his passes for nearly 3,000 yards and 29 touchdowns, while only throwing 7 interceptions. His supporting cast is equally talented. Dual threat running back Kareem Hunt averages 75 yards a game on the ground, with 7 rushing touchdowns and 6 receiving touchdowns. Receiver Tyreek Hill boasts world-class speed, with 15 receptions of 20 or more yards in 2018. And tight end Travis Kelce has 6 TD catches on the season. As big underdogs, Arizona must try to keep up with the high-powered Chiefs and duplicate their fourth quarter form from the last time they took the field.
We call it Cards Cover 2 every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. You can catch it live on azcardinals.com/live video. Also find us on YouTube. Search Cards Cover 2. And in case you ever missed the show, download it as a podcast via Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, or TuneIn. Grialou and Mike Jurecki. The Chiefs game on Sunday marks the official start of the second half, the third quarter, if you will. The next 4 games, though, for this Cardinals team, beginning with a trip to Kansas City. 3 road tests. I know you were big at the start of the season. Hey, those first 4 games, 3 at home. Well, now you're looking at road trips to Kansas City, to Los Angeles. They've got some issues as far as fan attendance, but still a very good Chargers team. And then Green Bay in December, knock on wood, it's not snowing.
Just take a look at those quarterbacks they're going to be facing. I know Derek Carr is going through some growing pains. He's still a quality quarterback. If they can protect him, obviously they lose Marshawn Lynch. He's done. And then getting rid of your number 1 receiver, Amari Cooper. But and the fact is that 3 out of the next 4 are on the road. So, listen, you only can play 1 game at a time. You can't win 2 in 1 day. So you just got to take it as it comes. But hopefully they could build some confidence going to Kansas City and try to steal a victory on the road. This would be huge if they can just keep it close and let this game come down to the fourth quarter.
Now let's talk about this Chiefs team, and the one word that repeatedly was talked about in the locker room when you brought up the Chiefs, specifically the Chiefs offense, was a challenge. And certainly the numbers are very, very impressive. We'll get to those, but here is Coach Wilks' thoughts on what they're facing on Sunday.
One thing we talked about all week is really trying to limit those big plays, understanding exactly who they're trying to target, which we know Tyreek Hill is one of those guys. So we got to understand and know where he's aligned at all times within the formation. And this is a very explosive offense. You know, going against Andy Reid for several years at different places, all the way back to the Eagles, this is part of his MO. You know, so we got to try to limit the big plays as much as possible. And you're right, when they do happen, we can't allow that to deflate the defense nor the team.
Yeah, we've gone through the numbers just to remind you. I mean, they have splash plays, 20 yards or more. They have 46 of them tied with Jared Goff, so you put Mahomes and Goff in there. And then when it comes to splash plays, 40 yards or more, they have 11. And the only other quarterback besides Mahomes is Aaron Rodgers. So I know it sounds simple, but the way that Mahomes' arm strength and the way they move him around, there's a lot of misdirection when you look at the Chiefs offense. One play, they're going to run a jet sweep. One play, they're going to run a bubble screen. Another play, they'll run the shuffle pass. So they do a lot of misdirection. They try to catch you in matchups. So the Cardinals definitely have their work cut out.
Now, from afar, as a fan, watching it, it's a lot of fun to watch.
It's like you're playing Madden.
Unless it's your team that's trying to defend it. And that's the problem here for the Cardinals this week. But because of the number of different weapons and the number of different directions in which Mahomes and the play calling can go, you don't know. And sometimes, I mentioned earlier, whether they go, 4-3, 4-2-5, down in distance. Well, sometimes with the Chiefs, down in distance, that doesn't matter. I mean, you could run it or do a variation of a run, a jet sweep or whatever, or misdirection. And even if it's short yardage situation, tight end, wide receiver screen, go deep. I mean, they keep you on your toes defensively.
Well, it's not like they're throwing the ball 60 times a game like they do in the arena football game. They have a really quality back in Kareem Hunt. Look at his touchdowns. He's got 13 total, 6 or 7 rushing, and the other coming in the receiving game. So he's definitely a weapon. So it's not like they're just going 4 wide, shotgun every down, and throwing the ball down the field. And again, they're a team that they get off to a good start, and then all of a sudden their defense kind of pins their ears back. D Ford's having an outstanding year. We talked about it. They've won the coin toss 9 times out of 9 games, and whether they defer or not, their first possessions, they only had 1 3-and-out, and that came against the Denver Broncos in the second meeting they faced each other. And you look at their play drives on their first possession, some are 3 plays touchdowns, some are 5 plays touchdowns, some are 10 plays field goal. So it'd be interesting to see, regardless of who defers, and when you face that offense for the first time, you don't want to play catch-up in this game. You got to keep this game close into the fourth quarter and try to pull off the upset.
Overall, here are the numbers on the Chiefs offensively. Number 1 in scoring, just over 36 a game. Number 1 in yards per play. Number 3 in total yards. Number 3 in passing. Number 13 in rushing. They're also converting better than 48% on third down and have an 73% success rate scoring touchdowns in the red zone. All very impressive. Now, earlier today, head coach Andy Reid, speaking with us and a whole bunch of other local reporters on a conference call, we're all impressed by his offense and what they're able to do week in and week out. Yet his quote was, "We have so much room to improve. It's ridiculous." I certainly would love to have his problems right now, trying to figure out how to improve. Now, I get it. You're the head coach. You're 8-1. You don't want a team to become complacent. I get it. It was just a funny line because I rolled my eyes. I looked around, and everyone's just like, really? Because you're basing it off of what we see every week versus what he's seen every week, and every coach wants that perfect game. It's impossible. But that's the mentality you have to have.
Yeah, and listen, you hear it all the time. We got to get better today. And it really happens because the only way you're going to get better is going on the practice field and cutting down your mental mistakes and using your technique. And, Andy Reid hasn't been very successful in the postseason. So he's thinking, we got 8 games to go here, and they could be a number 1 seed. So that means you're going to have to go to Arrowhead throughout the playoffs. I would anticipate right now it's the Patriots and Chiefs, but a lot of football to be played. And he's saying that they've lost a lot of plays on the field. And we look at the scoring, and coaches, to me it's coach speak, but I think he wants to grind his team saying, we haven't arrived yet. We still got 8 games to go here, and if something happens to Mahomes, everything's off the table at that point. I know you can't plan for injuries, but you got to be aware of them. So to me it's coach speak, but just from the outside looking in, very impressive what they're doing with a young quarterback.
And Patrick Mahomes in his second year. And here now we can get into the quarterback comparison because Mahomes was the 10th overall pick in 2017. Rosen the 10th overall pick in 2018. The difference is Mahomes sat last season behind
Alex
Smith. Blanked on his name. But I believe that was the plan, and I believe that was the plan for Rosen to sit behind Sam Bradford and learn. Now, it depends on, different coaches, different organizations have different philosophies when you're dealing with a young quarterback. But the idea is if you sit back like a Mahomes, like an Aaron Rodgers, and learn and then get placed in that position, you're much more ready and prepared for what awaits you as opposed to getting thrown into the fire. But, circumstances dictated Rosen starting because Bradford was ineffective.
Yeah, and, Andy Reid must have saw something in practice, and obviously when you move up in the draft and draft him 10th overall, it was going to be a short leash when it came to Alex Smith. Now, they were able to get a trade for him, got a good player back in return in Kendall Fuller. So from that standpoint, they must have been able to see something. Now, I always go back to Bill Belichick and Peyton Manning, and they say the only way you get better is by playing. The bullets are flying, and you're going to go through some growing pains, and you look at all the completion percentages right now when it comes to Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Josh Rosen. They're not very good, and they'll get better as the season progresses, obviously getting more grasp of the offense, etc. Some guys have more starts than Rosen. Rosen does have a couple wins under his belt, which is encouraging. But, the fact is that, you mentioned Rodgers. He sat behind a Hall of Famer for 4 years. I don't know if there's a perfect formula. I think the coach knows when to put the guy in, and obviously when you move up in the draft and get that. So, unfortunately, it's not the ideal situation for the Cardinals because they were hoping Bradford can play 12 to 14 games, and we would see Rosen maybe a mop-up duty. But he's been thrown into the fire, and there's going to be some growing pains. But again, there's nothing like playing in a real NFL game, especially going to a hostile environment. He'll remember that game. He'll remember his first win, etc. So it's not the ideal situation, but I understand both sides. You know, ideally, if Bradford was more productive, we're not having this conversation.
No, and for Rosen now, these last 8 games, and even go back when he was inserted as a first-time starter, it's all about the progress week to week. Now, is that manifested in numbers and touchdowns? I don't think so. I think what coaches look for, are you making the same mistakes twice? Are you learning from your mistakes? What didn't work in the first quarter, do you go back to it in the third quarter or fourth quarter, because now you understand what the defense wants to do, and you can progress that way as a quarterback who all of a sudden is no longer, quote-unquote, a rookie because you've been there, done that.
All right, so Peyton Manning is now doing these quarterback things where he breaks down a quarterback, but he also incorporates his career. And I got a chance to see it's about 25 minutes of him breaking down Josh Rosen. Now, the latest episode is Patrick Mahomes, and I haven't watched that one yet. It was early in the game he was breaking down, and David Johnson was open. And I was sitting next to you in the press box, and I'm like, he's got to make that throw. Now, he was looking beyond David Johnson, kind of getting a little greedy. He comes to the sidelines. The next possession, he comes out. Same play. David Johnson's open. You know what he does? Throws the ball to David Johnson instead of getting greedy. So when you say don't make the same mistake twice, just by going to the sidelines, looking at the play, saying, you know what, I don't want to play hero ball here. I want to get rid of the football. Let David Johnson make a play. He did that within one frame of making a mistake earlier in the game, and Peyton Manning points that out in the episode.
Make the right play as opposed to making the big play that might be the highlight
Don't get greedy.
play. Yeah, certainly not. And with Mahomes this season, his first full season as a starter, he did get some time last year, but he is completely rewriting the Chiefs' record books, leading the league in passing touchdowns. He's got 8 straight games of at least 300 passing yards, 4 straight games of at least 300 passing yards, and 3 or more touchdowns. Inside that Cardinals locker room, safety Trey Boston asked about what awaits the Cardinals on Sunday.
Very good. Throws to a lot of wide open receivers. I think Andy Reid does a great job of getting guys open for him. He does a great job of finding them. Again, it's up to us to go out there, make sure that he has to throw in tight windows, make him be this great quarterback that he's been so far.
And of course, it helps when you have an offensive line that can give you protection, although, as we've discussed, Mahomes is just as effective outside the pocket as any quarterback in the NFL.
But he does have time to throw.
Yes, and he's got playmakers to throw it to. It all kind of meshes together, and the Cardinals saw that, with Carson Palmer, David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, and an offensive line. I mean, you need everything to work in order to have the production that they are having, and for the Chiefs, it's clicking. I'll say it again. It's certainly a heck of a lot of fun to watch. Although if I'm in that locker room right now or in the meeting rooms watching it on film, and you're just sitting there going, "What do we do? What do we do? How do you stop this?"
But if you listen to Boston, what he's saying there, though, if you watch the film, these guys are wide open. Now that means the Cardinals may play man-to-man. They may play a little bit of zone just because they got a lot of weapons. It's not just one guy they target. I mean, Kelsey leads them in receptions, but we know Tyreek Hill. He's got 15 plays over 20-plus yards, and sometimes it's a bubble screen. Sometimes it's a jet sweep, a flare pass to the screen, and he takes off to the end zone. So it'd be interesting how they go about the cover. They're going to have to plaster coverage here. Would you say he's the MVP after 8 games or 9 games?
Absolutely. For me, he is. I mean, yeah, you can make a case for Todd Gurley as well, but just the numbers he is putting up, that offense as a whole on what they're doing, it's fun to watch, just not a lot of fun to cover. Although I'll say this, Budda Baker right next to Boston in the locker room, he had a big smile on his face. I mean, these defensive backs, in Baker's words, are excited because
it's a challenge.
It's a challenge, but they're also excited because the ball is going to be thrown their direction. And that's the biggest, that they want the opportunity to make plays, and no better opportunity when you have a quarterback slinging the football.
Now, I know they lost 1 game, and, this is more me just being optimistic. What if he has a bad game?
Well, he hasn't had it yet, so,
he's due.
Murphy's Law. I mean, at some point,
and they got the Rams coming up.
Yes. That's the one thing. If you're the Chiefs right now, you're stressing that real
Well, that's why
hard.
Andy Reid says they haven't, really scratched the surface yet.
Yeah, so it's going to be a fun battle to watch on Sunday, and certainly on the other side for the Cardinals, Josh Rosen, who's looking to capitalize on his fourth quarter performance against the 49ers. The numbers 12 of 18, 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Rosen earlier today asked about Mahomes. They don't know one another too well, although they were roommates with the Manning Academy, so they did spend some time together. But overall, Rosen wants to make everyone aware that he and Mahomes, they're not playing one another.
In a situation like we're in right now with the record we have, I think we're really trying to rein in the focus on us. I think we're trying to game plan for a defense and make sure we're looking at the right things. But for the most part, we're really trying to just get this ball rolling. I think we ended on a pretty good note at the bye, so I think we're just trying to basically keep chugging along.
And the other thing that's helping Rosen in this offense this time in between games for Byron Leftwich, who Andy Reid was very complimentary of on the conference call earlier on Wednesday, believes Leftwich has, quote, a bright future. And what this time might mean for the Cardinals offensively, they're not going to change everything, but continue on what they did well. The screen game, moving David Johnson around, lining up as a wide receiver and throwing the ball to number 11. All of that can play a factor in this because you have time. Now, sometimes you can have too much time and you outcoach or outthink yourself, but I'm expecting a little bit more from this offense on Sunday, irregardless of the Chiefs' defense or whomever they're playing.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some new wrinkles just because they've had a lot of time. Now, obviously, players had 5 days off, but that doesn't mean Josh Rosen wasn't texting Byron Leftwich. He's got an iPad that has all the plays on there, so they communicate all the time. But I do think we're going to see some new wrinkles. I think as Leftwich gets more comfortable calling plays and Rosen kind of gets, somewhat of a awareness what he likes and vice versa, I think we could see some new wrinkles. Again, it all starts up front, protecting him, opening up holes for David Johnson, and getting Christian Kirk and hopefully Kendall Wright and Ricky Seals-Jones besides Fitz. So I think as we progress to the second half of the season, you don't want to put too much on his plate, but some new wrinkles, and it's usually based on your opponent.
And remember, the offensive line is healthy. Knock on wood here that, you're going to have Potty back in the fold, Justin Pugh back in the fold, and all of a sudden those 5 guys on the field for the first time since week 6. That should help. And, we talk about a different blocking scheme. Rosen was hit against the 49ers, but it did seem like the offensive line performed much, much better against the 49ers. Yeah,
there's nothing like having the chemistry and cohesiveness with the same 5 guys, and it doesn't normally happen. We talked about the Redskins losing 2 starters in the last game, and they're out for the year. The good news is that, nothing long-term. Obviously, Mike Upati's he's wearing down just as his body is, but he's healthy and ready to go, and Justin Pugh's dealing with the thumb injury or the hand. But these guys in practice, and that's good news, as you pointed out the last couple of days, and you just said it right now, they haven't had the same 5 since week 6. So that's encouraging to where you got the same 5 guys that you went into the season with, and hopefully they can play up to par.
What's also encouraging when you look at the NFL big picture, the number of young quarterbacks now, Rosen, Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, of course, when healthy. You look at last year's draft, Mitchell Trubisky, Deshaun Watson, C.J. Beathard as well. There's a lot of young talent. No longer are teams kind of waiting, but those quarterbacks of the future are right now quarterbacks of the now. Andy Reid, earlier today, conference call with local media, asked about just that here in 2018.
You've got one right there, and so to think that you got a guy that can grow, and you got a good coach with Steve, and the opportunity to develop a young guy gives the team hope, right? I mean, it's just one of those things. So it's a great thing, and it's no different than what we're sitting with, and some of these other teams that these young quarterbacks are sitting there with. And so it's a neat deal. I mean, I think it's great for the NFL. It's great for the fans.
What has you convinced that Josh Rosen has what it takes to become that franchise quarterback?
Well, listen, I mean, he did a heck of a job in college, and then you got good personnel people there that picked him, and so you trust that the whole process and how that works, and then he'll continue to grow. The more he plays, the more he grows. I mean, that's just how these guys. That's how the good ones do.
I couldn't agree more with him because at some point the Tom Brady's, the Drew Breeses, Ben Roethlisberger's, Aaron Rodgers is still young, I think 32, 33. They're going to retire. And we're seeing the spread off.
Are we sure, though? I mean, you just mentioned 3 that are still producing, but I get what you're saying, yes.
I mean,
they're
not going to
forever.
play for 5 more years, but we're seeing the spread offense in high school, we're seeing the spread offense in college, and now it's gone to the NFL. And so it's really interesting that you look at the next 5 to 10 years. I think the NFL's in a good spot, and it needs to be because it's really quarterback-driven. And the NFL loves, if you look at all the rule changes, they love scoring. They love quarterbacks to be protected. So I think the league's in a really good spot. But you normally don't see these young quarterbacks see the field this early in their career.
Well, and the offenses are changing. They're adapting to these young quarterbacks because you can't wait any longer for them to learn the quote-unquote NFL that we all grew up with. It's now spreading it out more. You're throwing the ball more, which is what we're seeing in high school. On the college level, no more is it, well, now you have to learn the NFL ways where you're lining up with 2 backs and 2 wide receivers and a tight end. We know what you can do successfully. We want to be successful right now, so we're going to play to your strengths as opposed to kind of teaching you what works in the NFL. I think the NFL is changing just a little bit.
Oh, there's no doubt. It's a copycat league. When you see what Jared Goff did last year, and then you see what the Bears hire Matt Nagy and bring in Mark Helfrich, who really cut his teeth in college football, and their Chip Kelly. The problem is, Craig, is the offensive linemen coming out of college, they're not really ready to get in a 3-point stance.
Nope.
DJ Humphries never got in a 3-point stance at Florida. And so that's where you have a mobile quarterback with a strong arm. They can get rid of the ball. They don't have to sit there and pass protect for 3 to 4 seconds. These guys are getting rid of the ball less than 2-5 seconds. So I think ultimately, if you had better linemen coming out of college and they were getting a 3-point stance, you may see more of the running game. But because they can't hold up in protection that long, that's why you're seeing teams spread you out. And if you get a mobile quarterback or a quarterback that can make decisions from inside the pocket, that's how you're going to win in the game in the NFL now.
Now, the one word Reid used there was hope, and that's what the Cardinals have with Josh Rosen at quarterback is hope. Now, before arriving in Kansas City, Reid spent 14 seasons with the Eagles, and, well, Rosen, a California kid, grew up an Eagles fan, and he was asked, and he is very, very excited about sharing the same field with a head coach he grew up liking and watching, and all the Eagle teams that Andy Reid coached.
It's awesome. I used to have an Eagles shirt when I was a kid that said, "Our coach will eat yours." Yeah, no, I was a huge Andy Reid fan. Him and Mike Vick and the Deshaun Jackson days were very fun to watch. I'll never, still very vividly, my mom would we didn't really have TiVo, so she would have a tape recorder or a video recorder and record the TV screen. And I was at a Pop Warner practice and came back, and it was the Redskins game, and she showed me. She's like, "Hey, you got a surprise for you in the first play." So it was the naked boot when he bombed 80 yards to Deshaun Jackson. I remember it like it was yesterday after Pop Warner practice.
So for those that might not be old enough, TiVo, DVR, back in the day, they didn't exist. So how about Rosen's mom with a little MacGyver almost? So you're recording the game and then playing it back because, if you don't have a VCR, again, another thing that maybe people aren't familiar with. But, yeah, a California kid as an Eagles fan.
Yeah. I mean, Mike.
But you like certain players. And you like certain offenses, and the Eagles with Michael Vick and company, they were fun to watch as well.
I got a chance to talk to Josh yesterday. Did a Q&A with them, which you'll be able to see if you're going to the game against the Raiders. And I asked him, was there one quarterback that you idolized? And he said it was Peyton Manning, the sheriff. Not Michael Vick or Aaron Rodgers. It was Peyton Manning because he was called the sheriff, and he said he got everyone lined up. There wasn't a defense that he wasn't able to recognize. So those are great routes to watch film on. And again, Peyton Manning did an episode on Josh Rosen, and hopefully Rosen gets a chance to check that out because it's fascinating just what Peyton did and what Rosen's trying to accomplish here. But interesting that of all the quarterbacks that he grew up watching, it was Peyton Manning, the guy that he wants to emulate and he idolized.
Yeah, let's hope Cardinals have themselves a Peyton Manning here for a long, long time. Craig Grialou and Mike Jurecki. It is Cards Covered 2. We do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday here from the Dignity Health Arizona Cardinals Training Center. Before we get to your questions via social media, again, using the hashtag CardsCovered2, hashtag CardsCovered2 with the number 2 to get involved in the show. Between now and November 19th, every use of the hashtag Salute to Service on Twitter will generate a $5 donation to the NFL's military nonprofit partners, including the Pat Tillman Foundation. And on that subject, on Tuesday, in partnership with USAA, a group of Cardinal players, including Christian Kirk, Chad Williams, Justin Pugh, Mason Cole, Corey Cunningham, and Brandon Williams, they all paid a visit to Luke Air Force Base.
We came to Luke and we got to see the F-35, which is an unbelievable fighter jet. I knew nothing about it coming here today, so we were able to appreciate what they go through and what they deal with on a daily basis and when they are in combat.
You'll see today when we go out there.
That's wild. So this is phasing out a lot of the older jets.
This is my first time, being out here, and I think the best part about it, or the most fun part, was being able to check out the planes and being able to just see all the ins and outs and just hear these people talk about something that they're passionate about and what they love and what they do every day.
Trainers never really start in the ground, right? You do some basic flights, takeoff, landing.
What we do here at Luke Air Force Base is a mission that is like no other. And I think when they feel the support of the community that surrounds the base, it's amazing.
Thank you guys for your service. We appreciate it.
Now, for those listening to the podcast here, I invite you to go to azcardinals.com, watch the video because it is impressive, the access of these Cardinals players and what they were able to do and see. And then speaking of seeing, as you, MJ, pointed out to me while the video was being played, Justin Pugh, who was not in the locker room during media availability, has a mustache, and I didn't notice it on Monday, so this has got to be something that's brand new, and I wonder if it stays.
How would you describe it?
What do you call it? Is it the Fu Manchu? I don't know. It's not a goatee, no, but it goes around.
Yeah,
and
it's not the handlebars one.
No, it's
Raleigh fingers. There it is.
It's let's put it this way. It's a different look.
Looks like he just shaved though.
I don't,
because he was growing a beard.
Now, I'd say he lost a bet, but being a Syracuse alum,
let's hear it.
We're 7-2.
You're 7-2.
So
okay.
We're gonna have to get to the bottom of this, but it is a different look for Justin Pugh. By the way, congratulations to Brandon Williams, the Cardinals special teamer and defensive back, the Cardinals Salute to Service Award winner. And with that, time for the Bird Gang to sound off here on a Wednesday afternoon. Appreciate everyone's questions via Twitter and Instagram using the hashtag CardsCovered2. And we'll start with Twitter. And, well, this one kind of encompasses everything about Sunday's matchup, MJ. How do you think the Cardinals will try to deal with Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Kareem Hill, Sammy Watkins in the passing game? Will we see more 5DB sets with high safety coverage? By the way, that was very specific on the defense. That was pretty impressive. At Cardinals_31, by the way.
It's not going to be easy. I'm curious to see how they come out and match up. I don't know if they're going to play man-to-man. I don't know if they're going to play zone, but you can't let anybody get behind you. And Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, to me, is a matchup issue. I'm wondering, is Budda Baker's on him? Is Boston on him? Is Bethea on him? Do they bracket him? It's a great question, and I don't have the answer, but I'm sure they have a game plan going in. The main thing is, try to force them to get some turnovers. You heard Trey Boston. These wide receivers have been wide open, so maybe you have to plaster coverage and force him to throw in some tight windows. Maybe he hasn't done that a lot this year. He obviously has thrown a ton of touchdowns, so it's a great question, and I'm sure Wilkes and Holcomb are going to try to come up with some kind of game plan, but you just got to slow them down. Maybe you force them to kick field goals in the red zone. This team is putting points up at a premium, so easier said than done. But I'm assuming they got a game plan to go in there, and it may change at halftime with halftime adjustments. Curious to see what the score is at halftime. But they'll go in there and they'll try to attack Mahomes to force him to throw into tight windows.
And some news coming out of Kansas City. Watkins, by the way, dealing with a foot issue, so that might limit him or completely rule him out. We'll have to see what his progress is during the course of the week, but that would be at least one less weapon or less than 100% on that field.
Now, the MRI came back negative, but they want to be cautious with here. Plus, they're playing the Rams, a team that he was traded to. I followed Sammy Watkins' entire career when he was in Buffalo. It seems like he's always injured.
Yeah, staying on the defensive side as we move to Instagram, a user wants to know how the defensive line can keep up and help out in this matchup.
Well, win some one-on-one matchups. Gap discipline when it comes to Robert Nkemdiche. They got Marcus Golden. He looks like he's back. You got Chandler Jones. You got Budda Baker. If he's not covering one of these wideouts or the tight end, he's a guy at the line of scrimmage. I think you may have to blitz Patrick Mahomes, but it all starts up front. You got to win one-on-one matchups. You got to have gap discipline, and you have to be able to tackle in the open field.
And as much as Mahomes enjoys rolling out and completing passes outside the pocket, I think the Cardinals and any team will want a quarterback on the move because you are more accurate when you're stationary, even though we've seen Mahomes complete several balls when he's on the rollout.
And there's times when you see him have the ball 4, 5, 6 seconds because he rolls out. And he, being a young quarterback, he has a tendency to throw across the field.
Take chances.
And usually you want to cut the field in half when you roll up to that side, but he's willing to throw it to the middle of the field or the other side, and that's when you can get one of your defensive backs to jump the route for an interception.
Moving to the Cardinals offense, Instagram user wants to know how David Johnson might be more incorporated into the offense specifically against the Chiefs.
Well, I think it's a work in progress. We've talked about it over the last couple of weeks. He's had 20 touches, 26. I want to get that number up to 30, whether it's 22 carries. He definitely is a weapon in the passing game. So that's a work in progress, but I think we're starting to see the dividends of Byron Leftwich's play calling, including in the last game where he finally got to 100 yards. Larry Fitzgerald had 102 yards. We haven't seen that throughout the course of the first 7 games. So I think it's a work in progress, but you got to get the ball in his hands. He is a playmaker.
Appreciate the Bird Gang sounding off here on this Wednesday. Again, we'll do it on Friday. Hashtag Cards Cover 2, using the number 2 to get involved in the show. And when talking about Sunday's matchup against the Chiefs, if you want to know where to watch, listen, and follow the game, just head to azcardinals.com/game central. All the information and a good source of information specifically on game day, azcardinals.com/game central. And that's going to put a bow on this edition of Cards Cover 2. Special thanks to those behind the scenes: Tim Delaney, Jim O'Mahundro, Devin Henry, Jeremy Schnell, plus Grant Greeley, Jonathan Hayward, Brandon Nadas, Jesse Aranda, and Jackson Sipes. For Mike Jurecki, I'm Craig Grialou. We'll talk to you on Friday here on Cards Cover 2.